Welcome to my first Dare to Be You podcast. I'm Isabelle Tierney, and I am your host, and I'm really deeply excited to be here, as today we get to explore what it means to live a rich and a bold life by daring to be our most authentic, truest self, no holds barred. And I'm so deeply honored as well to have my friend and my colleague, Vanessa Horn. She's my first ever guest. And to me, Vanessa exemplifies what it means to be unbelievably successful by trusting who she is, no matter what. I mean, listen to some of her accomplishments. She is the CEO of Vanessa Horn International, a global business mentoring company. And she's a sought-after speaker, business coach, and author of the book, I'll Have What She's Having. She has successfully built and sold several businesses, and her training and coaching has been used by more than 7,000 entrepreneurs to rise to the top of their industries, but this is my favorite part, without burning out or selling out. She has been featured as an expert guest on several Fox, NBC, CBS, and ABC news and morning shows across the country. She holds an MBA in entrepreneurship, and she lives in North Carolina with her husband of 15 years and their three young sons. So welcome, Vanessa. I'm so very grateful that you're here with me today.
So honored to be here. Thank you.
Well, I wouldn't be here without you. Vanessa did this incredible coaching session with me the other day, and I was trying to find all kinds of excuses for not starting this show, and Vanessa just said, just do it. And that's what Vanessa is all about to me. It's kind of just do it. Stop putting excuses about why you can't do what it is that you love to do, and just do it. So thank you. And so today, what I'm really excited to explore with you, Vanessa, is what does it mean to be fully ourselves? You know, what does it mean, dare to be you? And as I was looking at my life in the last 50 years, what I realized is that it was a really simple healing journey that occurred, but it's actually quite deep and quite complex. So, you know, I was born being okay being me. You know, it was just like, here's Isabelle. She's born. And as I grew up, I learned, as we all do, from my environment, from family, from peers, from teachers, from other authorities that, oh, well, this part of you is not so acceptable, but this part of you is acceptable. And so as we grow up, we learn to say, ooh, I better not show this part of myself, not only to the world, but even to myself, while this part of myself, these parts of myself, these are good. And so it's like we learn to put on these masks that cover up who we are, and we end up like shells of our former authentic selves. And I know that for me, one of the primary reasons I developed a very serious eating disorders that lasted more than 20 years was because of this covering up of this self of mine and the shame that I felt about who I really was, that I had to continually hide and protect. And so, you know, the last 10, 15 years of my personal journey has been about recovering all of who I am and realizing that it's really kind of the only way to be. And the more I am myself, the more successful I am, the more connected I am to other people. And then when I look around to people like you, like the people that I admire the most are really the people that dare to be themselves. And that is what this whole show, what every single show will be about, is about daring to be ourselves. So, Vanessa, I really want to know about you and what have you experienced the same journey about kind of learning to re-own who you really are?
Well, I'll tell you, it wasn't even having any awareness of who I really was. Like you said, this reawakening, and it's interesting, a lot of my recent clients have described this process. my book's called I'll Have What She's Having. And that's that, what the French call that je ne sais quoi. It's an indescribable feeling that they get about somebody that they're unable to explain. And so what is it that has somebody walk around with that? These have described that they've had that in their past, and they want to step back into that. And so I didn't even realize I had it, but let me tell you what happened to me. I grew up with a mom who I interpreted her words, her experiences with me as I was not good enough for my mom. That's how I interpreted her actions and her words. So therefore, I discovered all of this amazing affirmation I could get through achievement and accomplishment in life. It started young with teachers, with peers, with authorities praising me. And so it's like, oh, wait a minute. This void that I feel on the inside that says I'm not enough for my mom, I'm getting it filled by seeking outside of myself for all of this validation and worth.
Yeah.
And it ended up being that was this unconscious life that I was living, was this constant striving, disconnected from the real authentic me, because I hadn't even slowed down long enough to ask myself, Vanessa, outside of validation and affirmation and feeling like you're worthy, what else do you really want in life?
Yeah.
That was a void that was filled entirely. What do you want to create? What do you really want?
Yeah.
And it took me burning out. This is why I'm so committed to helping entrepreneurs build a business, helping women create a life that they love without selling out their soul, without burning out. It's because it took that for me to finally wake up. I'd created success. I had a beautiful family. I had created a successful career. I had, at this point, a very successful business. And all of a sudden, everything that I'd invested so much time, energy, and effort chasing, because it was always like Rockefeller was interviewed and asked, like, how much is enough? How much money is enough? And he said, just one more dollar.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was like, how much success is enough? Well, just a little bit more.
Yeah.
A little bit more. And it was this constant chasing, so I wasn't even slowing down and enjoying the life I'd created. And it was a miscarriage, which was my first wake-up call. It was my first wake-up call where I finally connected to my heart. And I realized the fragility of life. And I was like, wait a minute, what am I creating here? Is this what I really even want? What am I chasing? When am I going to slow down? When am I going to stop needing the validation from the outside? And it was not an overnight thing. I showed up in a group of women as a support group, as the first place where I got that support, where I had to make the choice. It was interesting because I was at the time building a business, a network marketing business, which meant you're essentially recruiting people into your business. And it was such a perfect environment to feed that fuel of achievement, wearing masks, because it was basically you're always portraying, you want to be at my level, come join my business because you want to be just like me. Meanwhile, I was empty. I was scared. My business was falling apart. I just invested so much of my time, energy, and effort, and I was having this, like, is this what I really want? And I went to this group of 5 women. 2 of them were already on my team, and 3 were talking about joining my team. And I had to ask myself, Vanessa, are you ready to pull the mask off? This means that you're being honest with the people who are on your team. You're honest with the people who are looking at joining your team. And I was so scared because I thought, you know what, if they know the truth, they're not going to want to do what I'm doing. But I finally asked myself, Vanessa, if not now, when? When are you going to finally take time to satisfy your soul and take time to stop putting on the facade and really, really determine what you want and be fully authentic you? And I decided, if not now, when? And it was scary. That journey included saying, these are the things I never would want you to know about me. That journey included all the things these things I had pushed aside that I judged as not good enough, any shame, anything, and saying, all of it is me, and in a safe environment. And I think this is so critical to the journey, is finding people with whom we can be fully open and authentic, and it's safe, where we get that validation that, like for me, I got the validation, Vanessa, you as a human being, not a human doing, you as a human being showing up, flaws and all, is enough.
Yeah.
And that's what inspires us. That's what's powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so many things that come to me as you're speaking. So there's a couple points I want to slow down on. Is the piece about defining the safe people. I was just working with a client this morning who's really opening up to daring to be herself, and she is this just radiant. I mean, that's really the work that comes about her. But with her parents, she really can't show a bunch of parts of herself. And she was talking about how much pain that was causing her. And so we explored in this session about, are there times when it is important to put on a mask because, maybe the lady, I don't know, maybe your boss, if so, neither of us have a boss, but maybe your boss, you don't show all of yourselves to, but there's some people with whom that's really wonderful to do that. But is there a way to even consciously put on a mask? Because that's actually what's appropriate and that's self-loving versus putting on a mask, like you were saying, unconsciously and reactively. And it's a completely different experience to do it consciously versus unconsciously, right?
Yeah. And, I go through this exercise, and I do it frequently. I do it with my clients. I do it with myself regularly in life, where I examine everything in my life, where I'm spending time, with whom I'm spending time, what activities are taking my time, energy, effort. And I scrutinize them, and I say, okay, in 3 columns, hell yeah, maybe, and no, where do each one of these go? And if it's not a 10, it does not go in the hell yeah column, because I am intentional about creating a hell yeah life. And so life is about the details. And so every single detail I'm looking at, if it's not a 10, especially, us, as competent women, we say yes to 9s, 8s, 7s all the time. But we really need to clear all of that. And so, okay, what are 10s? And if it's in the maybe column, I look really clearly at, can it be a 10? If not, it's going in the no. And I listed on this list of people, believe it or not, my husband's family were in the no column. Because I was interpreting them as being judging of me. I was interpreting them as not really getting me. I was interpreting them as like they were always misunderstanding me. These are all my interpretations based on things that they had said and otherwise. And so I deemed them as not safe to be fully me in front of. And so I put them in the no column, and I made some conscious choices where I would just be okay if I wanted to say no to some family get-togethers and not feel this sense of I had to be there. But you know what changed? It was interesting because I made this commitment that I was going to live open-hearted no matter what, which meant pushing myself, to love in ways that actually made me uncomfortable and to live open-hearted. And even though they were in my no column, somehow when I started getting together with them at the few family functions that I was, them getting their world, what if I could start fresh, start the slate clean, and, give them the opportunity to show up however they may choose in this moment without me attaching any history to who I think them to be. And I started seeing, this is so wild, they started saying to me, Vanessa, like some of them, it was over a glass of wine and, they were loosening up. But Vanessa, I just love the woman that you've become. Who I see you being. And it was so interesting because I was having fresh eyes and openness to them versus expecting them to get me.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I love that. And then, right, we're all mirrors for each other. So as you were doing that, that allowed them to see you like that. I'm totally shifting into a piece of what you're saying that's so important right now. It's this gift of practicing seeing others fresh. I'm actually, the past few weeks, I've been practicing, 150 times a day. I keep thinking, refresh, because what I've noticed is that all of my suffering comes either from stories I have about myself and about the past and the future, or stories that I have about others and about the past and about the future about them. We're constantly comparing whatever somebody's doing in the present, including ourselves, to what they did in the past and whether it matches or not. And as I've been pressing this refresh button, life is incredible because in every moment there's something new. There isn't like, oh, my husband didn't take out the trash. Well, you see, he never takes out the trash and I'm all alone and I'm doing this all by myself, which is, right, the motto of the woman in the 21st century. But now it's like, oh, he's not taking out the trash today. Well, then it's like, oh, can you take out the trash, honey? Or I don't care if you take out the trash right now. It's not a big deal. But it's these projections, these stories that we put ourselves against and others against that I think when we loop it back to the theme of today, Vanessa, it's like, well, then that's not being us. That's not being you. That's you weighed down by this gigantic bag of old stories and old judgments. And you're saying you liberated yourself from that and you liberated your husband's family from that.
Yeah, all of a sudden I was enjoying them. Because I love what Byron Katie says, no two people have ever met.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I love her, and I had not heard that sentence. That's perfect, right? That's it.
So
that's it. We never know the person until they show up in front of us.
And if we hold them to an image of their past, we're not giving them the freedom to be who they really are and us to enjoy just even exploring what that's like. And I think even for ourselves to be fully us, daring to be us, I can't tell you how many times I've worked with clients and they just say, well, I'm not organized, or I'm not this, or my personality is this. Well, we're attaching ourselves to an identity of ourselves that keeps us locked into that when we actually have the choice, the power of choice and option of, really? Well, how do you want to show up in this moment?
Exactly. Really, and then when we think about our bodies having new cells, what is it? I mean, there's different parts of the body that regenerate at different rates, but we have a brand new body every so often, and it's pretty often. So how could we be the same person as last year or last moment? It's not possible.
Yeah.
I know, and I also, I've been exploring. So we're saying about being in the moment, and, we have the whole thing of the law of attraction, and I'm curious I've been exploring so let's say I think of you, Vanessa, right? And I have a really lovely story that I hold in my mind about you. You are this warm, wonderful, successful, capable woman. And I'm getting curious about whether holding positive stories about you is also still keeping me in a slight distortion, because any stories I hold about anybody prevent me from seeing them in the moment. Granted, that is a better story to welcome you in this moment with than, she's this, she's not this, she's not that. But I'm curious about what you think about that. Do you think that, are you practicing letting go of any stories about someone else, or do you like holding on positive stories because it keeps your heart open towards them?
I think the practice of having an open heart is the practice of having an open heart. But I love what Albert Einstein said, I have no special talents. I'm just passionately curious. If I can release the story of what I think of you, good or bad, it allows me to be passionately curious of who you are in this moment. Maybe I like to look at it as like wine. The essence of Isabelle, there's an essence to you that's like wine. And if I can be a connoisseur absorb it, it means I don't have a prejudgment, good or bad, going in. But how can I taste all the flavors of you, the flavors I may not have experienced in the past? It means releasing all of it and being fully present to how I'm experiencing your essence in this moment.
Yeah, because think about it. Even when I said the 4 things that I said about you that were wonderful, right? Well, there's about a zillion more. So if I'm stuck even on those 4 positive stories about you, I'm going to be missing 20 other things that are going to be showing up in the moment. So yeah, it's funny. I had a client yesterday said to me, she said, Isabelle, I think the single most important thing that you've taught me, she's been healing from an eating disorder, is that passionate curiosity. And that's what I'm practicing living, in my life right now. And you're saying it's the same thing. And so this concept of dare to be you, like, who's the you? That you is ever shifting, ever changing, and then it becomes a really exciting, passionate curiosity process rather than I am a mother and I am a wife and I am a therapist, like even throwing all those concepts out the window and meeting each other on this phone call in this moment.
Yeah, and one of the things that we have to release as well, just conscious of the fact that you had said these amazing things about me. If I'm going to be fully me, it also means that I know for me, one of my I push myself in the practice of being vulnerable and being 100% authentic, because otherwise, like even hearing praise or hearing the positive regard of somebody else, I can disconnect.
Yeah.
I can disconnect and then feel like, oh, well, I've got to portray this image of how she thinks I am versus just saying, Isabelle, this is how I'm showing up in this moment. I just want your listeners, I want any of the listeners of this, I'll tell you, like here's an authentic expression is I was conscious, oh, shit, what if my husband's family listens to this recording?
Thought about that too. Yeah.
Right? And if I hamper just being real about that, then I may shortcut that somebody else needs to hear that message.
Yeah.
Or I may say, well, you know what, you might esteem me in this particular way, but you know what, the most healing journey for me was to accept my complete imperfections, the shameful parts of me, the parts I was unproud of, and just say, you know what, they're all me. And then sometimes I laugh at myself when I do something that I'm like, oops, in that moment I chose, or a part of me came out and I just say, I'm choosing to believe that I'm fully lovable. Yep, I just did that. But I'm choosing to believe I'm fully lovable.
Yeah. And it's my favorite thing in the world is just to say what my shit is. And I think it's why I do the work I do with my eating disorder clients, for example. It's like, I'm like, yep, struggled, yep, really hard. For me, the shadow stuff and the more difficult stuff, the imperfection stuff is just as juicy, if not more juicy than the perfect stuff. And so, this podcast for me, the reason I decided to create this podcast is because I was looking at those 10s, Vanessa. I had named it like that. Like, what are the hell yes? What are my favorite times of my week? And that's when I'm having a cup of coffee or I'm on the phone with one of my friends or colleagues that are completely authentically themselves. And we talk about, shit, can you believe how competitive and jealous I felt with this speaker because she, I really want to be her. Or we talk about sex, or we talk about, even though I talk about needing to love my body, this morning I really struggled with liking my body. All this show is about talking about the stuff that so many of us don't dare to talk about because they're quote unquote imperfect. For me, that's what juices me up the most because it's life. And the shame puts such a damper. I mean that like a literal, like a fire damper on our life force when we say, well, I'm not good here and I'm not good there. So I'm excited that that's what you're working on as well, because that's what this show is about. And so whatever issues interest you that you see women really struggle with speaking about, talk to me about it. Let's do a show about it. And I want to invite anybody else who's going to be listening to this show, like, if you see that there are places you don't like to talk about, body image, sex, competition, jealousy, all that stuff we get so embarrassed about, tell me about it and let's talk about it, because let's just burst these bubbles of perfection. We're all so sick of it. We all get exhausted from it. It doesn't work. And that's what you and I are saying we both learned in our lives. It doesn't work. It's exhausting.
Yeah. I'll tell you, in the birthing process of this book, I'll have what she's having, and I really work with women who have a deep message inside of their heart, like they're ready to, they know that there's more for them, they want to step into that and be brighter, but there's these things that are holding them back. This is one thing I experienced. I don't know if you've read 50 Shades of Grey.
Yes, of course.
Okay, so I picked up that book, and this friend had said, oh, it's been amazing for my wife and my sex life. You have to pick it up. I didn't even know what it was. I called the library. They said, well, we have the 100th name on the list, on a waiting list. And I was like, ooh, what's this book about? And she goes, or we have one for rent for $3. I'm like, oh, I'll come down. I went and got it. And he said, pick it up at this page. I pick it up at that page, and I'm reading this stuff, and having worked with women so much, I'm getting angered at the author, and I'm judging her, and I'm like, what the hell? All these young people, because I have college students who are my interns, I'm like, all these young people are going to be on a mission to find the Christian gray in the world, and they're going to give themselves physically and sex, and then they're going to be empty, and then what? This author is setting them up for failure of an emptiness, because this will only fulfill for so long. I was judging her.
Right.
I hadn't even read the whole book.
Yeah.
I'm just judging based on this one segment a piece, and I took the time to say, Vanessa, what are you judging about yourself?
Yeah.
What are you judging about yourself that you're projecting onto her? And I realized I was judging the own message of my book. Vanessa, what if you put a message out there? Look at how much you've changed just in the last couple of years. What if in 5 years' time you look back at what you've written and you just, it's like, shit. I hurt people by putting that word out into the world when I really am still evolving, I'm still growing. And can you believe it? When I realized, like, okay, you know what? If Vanessa 15 years ago would have heard what Vanessa knows now, like, that's who I'm speaking to. If there's people, do I know everything I'll ever know? No. This is a growing journey every single day. But I am committed that there's someone who may have been in the same shoes that I was in, that is a captive that's supposed to be set free by my message. And for me to hold that back, as evidenced by judging this author, I was really judging myself. In that weekend, I doubled the content in my book. I was like at 18,000 words, and it doubled to 30-some thousand words in one weekend, the release I had from seeing that. So part of us daring to be us is where it's like when stuff shows up about others, it's saying, okay, wait, what's going on that I'm holding in contempt of myself? Because if I can release what I'm holding in contempt of myself, I can be fully me.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, or, there's this term that's called, how we usually talk about the shadow, and the golden shadow is what we actually envy. It's like, I'll have what she's having, right? It's like, no, I wish I could have what she's having. And so I've seen myself with Oprah, like, well, she's always on the cover of her magazine, and like, oh, well, and then I was like, wait, Isabel, what the hell is that about? It's like, there's so many parts of Oprah's life that I really want to emulate. And what we often do is, rather than being really open and excited about going, I'll have what she's having, we go, I wish I had what she's having, and what a bitch it is that she's having that, and we start judging them because it's actually what we really want. So it's both sides of the coin, what you spoke about of what we don't own in ourselves that's negative, and then what we don't own in ourselves that's positive as well. So I know we unfortunately need to already come to an end of this conversation, but I want to kind of recap by saying this is a journey. This is not something that is ever static. As you were saying, in 2 years, the you that you're going to be is going to be a different you. And I can only think to myself that the process isn't just about adding more pieces of me, right? More wisdom, more joy, whatever it is, more experiences, but as well as paradoxically letting go of more masks and more cover-ups and more stories that I consciously or unconsciously hold about myself that stop me from being fully me. And it's not an easy process. It's scary as shit. It really sometimes is. Sometimes it's scary as shit. And I know that I want to commit to saying, so what? Like you said, there was something you said that I really liked it. It's kind of like a so what? If not today, then when? That's what I love that sentence, because what are we waiting for to be ourselves? What are we waiting for? For mommy or daddy to say, yeah, that's good enough? That's not going to happen. So thank you, Vanessa, and tell me if there's anything that you want to say as we close the show.
I'm so excited for what you're creating here. I just know this is going to liberate so many people to just be fully themselves. And it's the subtitle of my book, Becoming the Woman You Want to Be by Loving the Woman You Are.
Oh, I love that. Oh, that's amazing, because I was surprised. I wasn't sure. Oh, it's Vanessa. Oh, she's my first interview, and I only know you from certain places. And I was like, okay, I'm going to trust. And I didn't even realize, once again, right, the people that are supposed to come to us at exactly the right time and the right place. So, yay, let's do more of these, all right? I want to keep this conversation going. So I want to say one thing. If you want to check out my work, I'm at www.IsabelleTierney, TIERNEY.com. And Vanessa, what is your website?
VanessaHorn.com, VANESSAHORN.com.